Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Quacks podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Dozer, and if you're new to the show, the mission here is to expose the gimmicks and quacks in the marketing industry while featuring some great marketers and entrepreneurs along the way. So in this episode, I'm excited to welcome our guest, Andrew Holland. Andrew is the Director of SEO at JBH. Andrew, thanks so much for joining the show.
Hey, thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So before I dive into the questions, I first started following you on LinkedIn a few years ago, and I've noticed that your SEO following has just skyrocketed. So very impressed at how in-depth your content and insightful some of these insights that you have are in SEO. So I just want to acknowledge you for that first.
Thank you. That's wonderful feedback. Thank you. Makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in, man. Talk about your experience in SEO and kind of what you do now.
I mean, I've been doing SEO now for a long time. So originally I started SEO. We didn't call it SEO, but I was a police officer for 20 years, and I started SEO
Oh,
as part
wow.
of So I started SEO as part of my work in intelligence, and we had an internal search engine which I had to create, gain intelligence and input it on there, and you had to link out to the different entities. It's kind of like going that now is like current SEO, almost like entity based and semantic search. So it was a semantic based search engine, although obviously just in relation to crime. But I started off doing that, and we didn't know it was SEO. I left that department after a number of years, started dabbling, making websites for some reason, just got sort of pulled in that direction. Um, I got really bad asthma, so I had to leave the police force. Or I didn't have to, but I retired on ill health. Started, my own freelance little marketing business at the time, and that grew into a proper agency. We had staff and freelance support and lots of good clients. I did a lot of strategy work as well as doing client work. And pandemic hit. Post pandemic, everything was busier than ever, and then I just kind of got a bit worn out. So I then went in house at a large agency. I had 100 odd clients in that agency, and then about a year ago, I left there and to where I am now, which I'm the director of SEO at JBH, and we're traditionally a digital PR agency, and we build links by digital PR. But my job is to set up and build out the SEO offering, which has been fun over the last year.
Yeah, so I guess talk about JBH a little bit. What's your selling point through JBH versus, I don't know how many marketing agencies there are in the UK, but I know in the United States there's thousands and thousands of these marketing agencies. So what's your selling point for JBH over the others?
Well, I mean, in particular, we've got two things we do really well. One, we do the SEO well, but two, we do the digital PR. And it's very rare to find a digital PR agency that's growing an SEO side. It's always an SEO side that's trying to, an SEO agency or marketing agency that's trying to add digital PR to it. So that's really interesting. So I basically joined a team of elite link builders. So, I mean, and it was partly tactical on my point of view, but I mean, we all know the importance of links, and we all know what a pain in the backside links are, and getting them and everything else. And I've always been a believer of the power of publicity. And I think digital PR, when it came out, it got a bad rep because people were just jumping on it a little bit like now, because they thought it was the next shiny thing. And then that sort of went away a little bit. But JBH has been doing proper digital PR, and there's an award-winning agency in it, specialist in it, but they never had the SEO side. It was more just the digital PR link side. So that's where we are and where we sort of excel, because we're a performance focused agency. Our job is to get brands higher ranked for the keywords that matter, and it's less about generating tons of blog content and more about getting people higher for those money pages and money terms. And that's what separates us. We've got the ability to do the on page, and we've got the ability to get those links. And as a result of that, people come to us and who want improvements. And we're seeing massive success in the digital PR side, and especially where we've had FCO clients who are also using digital PR, and I get to see all that data within a digital PR agency, so I can see what happens when links go live on client sites, and I can see quite a lot of interesting data I've learned over the last year.
Yeah, I was on a podcast last year and I quoted saying digital PR is the bulletproof strategy for SEO in 2024. And I truly stand by that. And well, I'm excited to talk more about digital PR as we kind of venture into this episode. Talk about some of your biggest wins. Now, this could be at JBH, this could be you personally. What would you say some of your biggest wins in SEO or DPR have been so
I'm,
far?
I mean, do you know, I mean, tons, like I've got like I wrote a blog page for that generated over 1 million visitors, and things like that. There's so many results. I think the one I'm most proud of is I helped a business owner like double their revenue from it's like they were already on 7 figures, but like 1 million to something like 3.5 million. Um, and we did that by focusing on the bottom of the funnel. And that, to be honest with you, was one of my biggest learning curves because the business owner challenged me and said, "Hey, look, I don't want traffic. I don't care about traffic. I want revenue." And the business owner pushed me quite hard to focus on revenue rather than necessarily growing a blog or getting links for something. It was like, hey, I want results, and I worked with that business owner, still friends with him now, to be honest with you, and we had great success, and I know he's done really well. And so I'd probably say that was one of my proudest moments, being able to increase a business's actual legitimate revenue. It wasn't glamorous work. If you look in the search console dashboard, traffic has actually relatively not moved an inch, But what we did with that business is we did all the blog content at first, like you would do traditionally. This is a lot of where my learnings have come from. We did all that, and it didn't increase revenue. The increases in revenue came by the unsexy work on lots of pages that got low traffic. And we set up, this is pre AI, but we set up like a 24-hour content operation where I had people doing research and they were based in foreign countries, so they could do the research, create some of the content. We'd walk in the next day in the office, and my staff there would get the content and alter it and upload it and put it on the site. So, because there was no other way to tackle such a lot of pages. But yeah, I'm a big. I'm happiest when we're generating revenue for people, and I think that's. Whereas I know there's a lot of SEOs who default to let's just generate traffic, and that's not what I think is a great use of resources and time anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm glad you brought up that distinction. It's the 80/20 principle, right? So, like, a lot of people think they're still in that display ad mindset where it's traffic, traffic, traffic. We need to monetize through display ads. But in my opinion, in the world of AI, I think informational queries are kind of on the downside. So, like, if you're relying on display ad for revenue through just traffic, 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 you're going to fall down pretty quickly. That's my take on it.
No, I agree. In fact, I just saw a post that someone said I think Google's talking about SG not happening. I don't know how true that is, by the way, because I haven't read the post. But I know that Google are changing AI and they're doing the circle thing with the finger you can do on the phone to find stuff. Whatever way we look at it, information. I put an article out on Search Engine Land around the Great SEO Heist, and the fact that it is the Great SEO Heist. I mean, if you're watching this, I assume most people know what it is. But the Great SEO Heist didn't happen. Well, it basically brought something forward what we all knew was going to happen, that we don't own information in an AI world, that Google is saying they can take your information and use it however they want to. OpenAI is doing that as well. I mean, I know there's legal challenges and things like that, but information ownership is pretty much dead and buried. And as a result of that, I think we've got to look at marketing in a very, very, especially search marketing, in a very different way. And the fact that the old traditional idea of let's write 100 blog posts because somehow that connects with our readers, that's really too wishy-washy and probably hasn't led to traffic. I was having a conversation, slight segue. Someone put a post about product-led SEO and marketing-led SEO and talked about content and getting your brand aligned and things like that. In reality, I used to think like that too, but my eyes were opened by some hard, challenging conversations around the logistics of how people buy, memory decay, brands, the brand impact, all those kind of things, and that idea probably it doesn't stand up to very good scrutiny from hard, experienced marketers. HubSpot is a classic example. If you go and look at HubSpot, and there's someone put this post on yesterday, and one of the comments I made was, "Hey, Luke, HubSpot generates most of its traffic from about 35 pages. It's got them. So somebody signed off on probably £1 million of content, and yet how much of that does actually drive any kind of meaningful metric? Probably nothing, but traffic's a lovely thing sometimes for the boardroom. But no, I think we're going to have to become more effective as SEOs. I think, yes, we are probably likely to get bigger budgets, but I think squandering them unnecessarily on endless content is probably done. When somebody can just steal your sitemap and copy it and have an exact.
Especially with AI, when you can generate hundreds of blog posts in minutes, right?
I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I use AI and I use it appropriately, and I think there's times when AI is perfectly fine because you've got, AI helps experts and business owners are experts. Brands are experts. It helps them to get information out for their audience on their site, which may or may not rank on Google, depending on how lucky you are and what work you're doing. So AI makes people more efficient in terms of and more effective as well. It's just that it's the overuse of AI which is the problem, and people trying to spam the internet. And as long as the content is quality that it's producing and it answers the query, I don't have a problem with AI in the slightest.
Yeah. And you have the DPR behind it to back up the AI post too. I've learned that can work in some instances.
Yeah, I mean, we use AI in the agency for all kinds of things like ideation and everything to do with digital PR, and we've got our own in-house tools that we built. But I think what's important now in this era is it's not what's written, it's the who that wrote it, and you want to establish yourself as the who. And this is where I say to people about information is a commodity. Anyone can take that information now. It doesn't matter. If I want to set up a website about tropical fish, all I can do is I can go to any website, steal their sitemap, copy it all, put it on my website, and it will be 100% unique. And that tells Google what? That there is another database of information on the web around tropical fish, just like what was somebody else's put together. And I can go and steal everyone's information from all the websites like we used to do with content. But that still doesn't change the who. And the who is like, why should Google rank me and my website? And I think that's why it's going to get harder for these niche site empires to be built, because the who is what Google's interested in. That's what it's all geared about. And that's where digital PR comes into its own power, because what it does is it's building links, but it's also telling Google who you are and what you do. And, and it's very difficult to be multiple people. So.
Absolutely. And I used to work at a big SEO company. I won't say who they are, but we used to compete, and you probably know this. There's like 5 media conglomerates that own 75% of the website. So we used to compete against Dotdash Meredith, Red Ventures, Forbes is a big one as well. So like I was playing big boy SEO there for a while, going against US News, Forbes, and like these competitive SERPs. So I'm very familiar with how important EEAT has become.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Dotdash Meredith empire. I mean, if you look at the Spruce, I mean, everything's done so well.
I used to work there, by the way.
Did you? Everything's done so well there in terms of, the stuff I see anyway. I mean, everyone's got a backstory, but when you look at the content, the way the sites are structured, how it's done, there's a lot of effort gone into the quality around that. But they are media empires. And there's a lot of money being made. There's a lot of investment in there. And I remember, I can't remember his name, but the guy who formed Dotdash Meredith, and I was listening to a podcast about him, and he says it's this consistency, this commitment to quality content. And you go on the Dotdash Meredith site or the Spruce site, for an example, and you go on that, and you like every piece of content is good. It's like it serves up what you want, and they're going to be big, and they've got lots of content writers, and they've got the experts, and they've got the checking of the content, and I think that's the challenge for people. Is it in the olden days, the idea of you setting up 52 blogs and making so many pounds from each blog might sound attractive. It sounds like a horrific idea to me, but it might sound attractive to some, but that is going to get even harder for people to do. Whereas it probably is better if you want to set up a real website, and a real brand and create that real brand. And that's probably where you're going to have to go down the route of, rather than all these niche sites everyone's creating at scale.
I agree 100%. Let's transition a little bit here. I want to talk about personal branding and how, I guess, walk me through like what snapped in your head of like, oh, I need to focus on my personal brand, and kind of how you were able to grow your presence on LinkedIn to 50K plus followers or whatever other platforms you're on.
Okay, I mean it's a really interesting one because I actually got a course on this that I've called Better Clients, Less Networking, and so this goes back like 5-6 years. I've been posting daily on LinkedIn for about 6 or 7 years, and got to nothing but tumbleweed. And the reason why I did that is I took a course by Seth Godin, the marketing seminar course by Seth Godin. I highly recommend that course to anybody because it will clarify your thinking on marketing and do it in a short period of time. And one of the things Seth Godin does, and we all know this, is he posts daily, and he talks about frequency, and that's exactly what I decided to do. I went to market every day. I chose LinkedIn rather than putting out my own blog post because at the time when I was running my own agency, I was putting long form content out there, doing the whole Brian Dean kind of thing, and that was great but very time consuming. So every day I would put a post on LinkedIn. Nobody liked them. Like I got like 200 I got like 200 views, in like,
The algorithm is screwing with you, man.
man, I got nothing, man. It went on for ages, and then I just kept doing it, and I just kept doing it and doing it, and I got better at writing content for LinkedIn. I got better at that particular style. I started noticing things. I started trying different things and trying different techniques, and that led to more content being created. It led to better content, and I also started getting a bit more confident and passionate about what I wanted to say. And to the point where I'd see things online with SEO, and I was like, no, I don't agree with that, and I don't like what I'm seeing, and of the industry, the way it's going down, and I need to have some voice, and I'm a big fan of Seth Godin in terms of, he talks about leadership and be brave enough to go out there and lead, and I think I've got more experience than a lot, but less than many, and I think I've got a voice, and I think we've got platforms that allow us to have that voice, and so I share it. Yes, there is definitely lead generation that comes from that. There is no doubt about that. There's quite a lot of lead generation. In fact, it is scary how much comes from LinkedIn. But I think my objective is to go to market every day with something I want to say about SEO and marketing and content marketing and link building. And I always have this. It was never say I wanted to grow this huge following. It was never about that. The huge following and it's not as big as many. It's loads of people, much bigger followings. But the following came about as a result of me wanting to say interesting things about our business and our area. So the following is as a result of that. If I wanted a bigger following, I would do very different things on LinkedIn because there are ways to get bigger followings. And there's people who have overtaken my following far, far faster. And that's great. And I'm sure that's winning them tons of business and they're doing really well. But, that isn't the kind of content that I wanted to put out there. I didn't want to go down the route of shoving slide decks on how to use phrase and things like that, or these
Yeah,
are my
yeah,
seven this is how I made £11 million with these 7 blog frameworks that we know didn't work, and stuff like that. I find that slightly cringeworthy. So I've gone down the route. Originally, I went down the route to talk about the value of SEO. That was my whole scope, the value of SEO. That's why I decided to talk about that constantly. And then the next thing I sort of swayed in, I'm now talking about the effectiveness of SEO on a marketing basis, the effectiveness of digital PR, and talking about why SEO is not just what good it does, but how going into the more scientific parts of the industry. But the personal branding thing. So in 2022, just give you some sort of probably rough estimates. I had about 12,000 followers in 2022. So that then went up to just over 20,000 followers in a year. So by this time last year, I was probably at 20 something thousand followers. That started skyrocketing, and then so I was about 29,000 followers in March time, and then I reached all the way up to 50,000. I've got over 50,000 followers now. But the big thing this year has been the newsletter that I put out, and that's like at 25,000, 26,000 subscribers. Put it probably as one of the biggest SEO newsletters in the industry. and that's grown over the last year. So that is hard work. I am going to lie; it's hard work to do on the weekends, and it's the last thing I feel like doing. But again, it delivers value in lots of ways for me. But yeah, I urge, by the way, everyone to do the same. I urge everyone to go out there and build their own personal brand for a million reasons: career protection, opportunity creation, the very fact that you work in an industry and you might as well have an opinion about that industry, and you don't have to do it for leads. You can do it because you've got thoughts and you want to share those thoughts about your industry. And I think that's a cool thing. I think it's for me, it's like a diary of where my brain is at. So, but yeah, it's been a fun endeavor, and I encourage everyone to do the same.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. I think I started following you in 2020, somewhere around that time frame, and like you
Wow.
popped up from the algorithm. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I was like reading through your posts, and I'm like, wow, this is actually like insightful SEO content, not just the generic clickbait like you were just talking about, those slide decks. And like I see all these AI ones where it's like, oh my god, 3 chat GPT killers. Have you seen this? Blah blah blah. I'm like, get out of here with that stuff. You know what I mean? That actually took no insight, no attention to detail, and it took no effort either to like create those posts. So appreciate the time and effort that you put into your content, which is why I've been following you ever since and engage with your content too. So let's talk about, I want to transition a little bit to AI now. So there hasn't been a podcast episode where I haven't talked about AI. Talk to me a little bit about how you're leveraging AI in your SEO content workflows. Any suggestions for tools that you're using? Where do you think AI is going? Its impact on SEO? Just anything you want to discuss with AI.
Yeah. Okay. So this is really interesting stuff. So I use a range of tools that you wouldn't know even exist, and to be honest with you, I stumbled upon them, and I actually don't even know what their names are, and I've got them on a list somewhere, and that list is incredibly valuable to me, and they're tools I go to, and various ones. Most of them have been freely created by people, and I've just picked up on them. Um, and I'm tending to find that at the moment. There's a lot of what I would probably call guerrilla tools out there, like where people have created them themselves. GPTs are incredibly interesting, I think, and producing. GPTs have the ability to destroy the software industry because they're like the apps are, and I think they represent some really cool innovations because the GPTs that I've tried mostly have been amazing, and that I think that's a great thing. I've used other tools, but generally speaking, what I'm finding is interesting one using AI to actually make content better, but it actually reduces the content. So we went through that thing. Let's shove 3,000 words on a page, and a lot of tools with AI are still like that. But when you get into the content, it is very wordy. And we recently did a test with a client where we added not wordy content, but it wasn't wordy, but we added quite a bit of content. And in the end, that didn't help a position because he'd lost a lot of his rankings. But then I had to keep stripping that down and using AI to basically keep ripping it apart and ripping it apart and ripping it apart until eventually we were left with very little content but it's worked and it's smashed it up the rankings massively and because I think we've got the weight of the sentences really right now. You could argue, well, okay, a human could do that, but a human couldn't analyze it like the machine could, not in that same way. And I think that is for me like how I'm using AI. I'm using it for on-page analysis. I'm using it for analyzing content. I'm developing my own GPTs as well in relation to help make content faster for information gain, make for both search engines and search users. So I'm using that, and generally that's how I do it. I don't really use AI for content writing for thought leadership. I do use AI for my newsletter, and that was an interesting development. And that's something as part of my course. Where what I did is I used to have to write this newsletter from scratch every Sunday, and it was really hard work. And like I was getting lots of grief from my wife, and so what I did is look at okay, well, how can I create thought leadership with AI? And I went through every tool going. I tried. I tried Grammarly when they had their AI thing that came out. I used WordTune. I used Jarvis. I tried everything to get around this. Jarvis Jasper, as it's called now.
Yeah,
I tried
Jarvis is a
everything.
throwback, bro. I started using Jarvis when it first came out.
Yeah, that's it. And so I'm going back in time here to show my AI background. So I did everything. In the end, it was a prompt. I got better results from a prompt. And this took a lot of experimenting, by the way. So in the end, I wrote a massive 1,500 word prompt. And what that did was allow me to take my insights. So I look at a website, write my insights down, make some notes, throw it into use the prompt, throw it into ChatGPT, and it would create 75 to 80% of my newsletter, but format it and add in the introductions and everything else like that. So it's as soon as I did that process, it was like, yeah, AI is just going to take over everything. It's just that we haven't figured out yet how to use it properly. But since I've been doing that, I mean, literally, it's saved probably at least 50% of the time it takes me to do my newsletter, and it's made it easier for me cognitively. I don't have to do repetitive tasks and format things. And it's very intuitive how it takes my insights and then builds an entire newsletter article around them, about 1,500 odd words, 800 words, I think it is, generally. And then what I do then is I go in, I alter what needs to be altered, I make it more me or more human, but it is trained on my writing style. So if that can make me 50% more productive on my newsletter, it's kind of how I'm looking at AI across the board. How can we use AI to make things faster? I've used it for meta descriptions. I've used it for page titles, all that kind of stuff, and even improving click-through rate and things like that. There's so much potential of AI with SEO.
Yeah, one thing I learned really quickly with these AI tools, there's like Write Jasper, WordTune, I mean, there's so many different AI SaaS tools out there. What I learned right away is like, these are all just white label open AI. They're just spinning it in a nice interface, creating these pre-configured prompts, and then charging you 20 to 50 bucks a month to use GPT-4. And I'm like, well, you could just go to ChatGPT Plus, create a custom GPT, figure out better prompts that these SaaS tools are using. So like that was my lightning moment. I'm like, well, what's the point of all these AI tools when it's all just white label open AI?
I agree with you 100%. And I think, I get approached, and it's getting a problem now. I get spammed a lot by tools. And, this AI writing tool, that AI, I mean, AppSumo is just full of them constantly now. And they're all pretty much the same. And generally, that's because mostly writers haven't written them. I get that. And everyone's like saying, oh, my tool's slightly better. And I'm sure some are fractionally better than other tools. I mean, Jacob McMillan the copywriter, put out a chat GPT for free that does one of the best first drafts I've seen. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, it's hard to do that better than that. And that's free. So, there's other tools you can use to do the SERP analysis and get all the bits and bobs in there. But I think generally speaking, the models, the way we've written content in the past isn't based on what's ranking now.
Yeah, Andrew, appreciate it. Thanks again for your time for joining. And that's, again, thanks for everyone for listening. Be sure to tune in on the next episode of the Marketing Quacks podcast.